Sheryl, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to Caitlin Clark winning Time Magazine Athlete of the Year?
I don't think I'm surprised. I'm curious to know who the other candidates were.
But we've never seen anything like Caitlin Clark.
Indiana Fever's GM, Amber Cox, just made a strong comment to Sheryl Swoopes during a live broadcast. Sheryl might need some time to calm down after that remark. From the start, Sheryl has been downplaying Caitlin Clark's talent, suggesting her success is due to her skin color, while giving a lot of praise to Angel Reese. But
because she has so many fans, and you saw it across arenas, I mean, people are moving games because so many people wanted to see her.
Amber wasn't having it. She stepped in, called out the nonsense, and shut it down so firmly that Sheryl might have a hard time recovering from this hit to her confidence for
the longest time. The WNBA has been trying to get on this global scale, and I feel like that's the direction they are finally headed. I think that WNBA fans have always been proud supporters and pushers of the advancements of this league, but sometimes it takes a certain star of a certain caliber to really just expand and explode the league from the inside out, and that's what Caitlin Clark is.
While honestly, let's be real, we never needed Sheryl Swoopes' approval for Caitlin Clark. But it still stings a little when someone with her experience and reputation takes cheap shots instead of giving credit where it's clearly due. From college...
Asia Wilson in there.
That was just basketball.
So that's what I'm saying. Was it just the performance on the court, or
no, it's global.
It's
like, I think it's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Reports to the WNBA, Clark has completely changed the game for women's basketball. She doesn't just play, she redefines it with every move, every three-pointer, every assist, proving she's a true game changer. Yet, instead of getting praise, we're still hearing Sheryl's outdated criticisms. And speaking of recognition, how about Clark being named Time?
The fact that that's the very first WNBA player to ever win Time Magazine Athlete of the Year is pretty special. And my question is, like the criteria, is it based off of her performance on the court, which, yeah, she had a great year, or is it more about the impact that she had on the game this season?
Magazine's Athlete of the Year. That's not just an award, it's a statement. It puts her in the same company as legends like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, athletes who don't just dominate their sports, but change history. For women's basketball, this is a game-changing moment. Her stats, they speak for themselves. Clark's record-breaking college career wasn't just practice.
Caitlin Clark was recently named Time's Athlete of the Year.
She stepped into the WNBA and immediately started dominating. Deep threes that seem impossible? Check. Assists that make you wonder if she has eyes in the back of her head? Double check. And let's not forget her ability to draw huge crowds. People who never gave women's basketball a second thought are now showing up just to watch her play. But not everyone is on board with this new era. Enter Sheryl Swoopes, who's been openly skeptical of Clark's rise. It started with her brushing off.
I think Caitlin Clark deserved that. What Caitlin Clark did, because so many eyeballs were on her, was she is a huge multiplier effect of
Clark's college dominance as just hype, even making a strange claim that Clark's age gave her an unfair advantage. That's when Amber Cox stepped in. The Indiana Fever GM made it clear she wouldn't stand for any Caitlin Clark slander, especially—
Look, like, I don't take anything away from other players that brought more eyeballs. Angel, Cameron, right? Like, the identity and how much brand recognition these players now have in college absolutely helped the W.
Especially not from someone like Swoopes. In a series of direct interviews, Cox didn't just defend Clark, she completely tore down the old criticisms. For Cox, this isn't just about backing a standout rookie. It's about challenging outdated views and changing how women's basketball is perceived. Let's start with the obvious. Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation talent, and Cox isn't afraid to say it. We've never seen anything like Caitlin Clark, Cox said, and
we've never seen anything like Caitlin Clark.
She's right. Clark isn't just showing up and playing. She's filling arenas, breaking TV ratings, and bringing the WNBA into the mainstream spotlight it's been striving for years to reach. Of course, Not everyone is happy about Clark's rapid rise, especially Swoopes, who's been throwing shade from the sidelines like it's her full-time job. She's questioned everything from Clark's college dominance to
Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Not a female superstar, she is a superstar.
We were coming to see Caitlin Clark play.
She moves the needle. The WNBA has been looking for someone who moves the needle.
her supposed impact on the Fever locker room, even suggesting jealousy and division among teammates. But Cox wasn't about to let that narrative take hold. In an interview with In Case You Missed It host Christina Williams, Cox shut it down, calling Clark more than just a player. She's a movement. Caitlin,
Obviously, as we get into free agency, the number one priority for us is re-signing Kelsey Mitchell. I think that backcourt was about as lethal as we've seen in the WNBA, and I'm talking maybe in history in the second half of the season last year.
is someone who brings more eyes to our game, someone who opens doors for all of us, Cox said confidently, leaving Swoopes' petty critiques in the dust. Cox didn't stop there. She laid out the facts. Attendance is at an all-time high, Fever home games are sold out, and fans are buying season tickets after seeing Clark play just once. These aren't just feel-good stories.
We want to reunite Caitlin and Kelsey. And Kelsey, when I think about her and her time in Indiana, and, you know, a lot of trials and tribulations throughout her career. So for me and for us, I'm most excited for her to be in this moment and experience so much success.
There's solid numbers showing that Clark's impact is undeniable. For Cox, it's not just about what Clark brings to the Fever, but what she's doing for the whole league. Players like Clark aren't just the future, they're the present, and they're lifting everyone up around them. As for Swoopes' claim that Clark is causing tension in the Fever locker room, Cox didn't hold back. She described the team as a close-knit group and emphasized the strong chemistry between Clark and veterans like Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey and Caitlin aren't just teammates, Cox explained. They're a dynamic duo in the making.
Surprised by Caitlin Clark and the Fever's improvement since the Olympic break.
What?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5
That's crazy.
Five
Is
point,
that dominant?
5.6
Those are
turnovers.
hell of a number.
Those are hell of a numbers.
But to me, that's not
Period.
dominating.
Idea that jealousy is brewing? Pure fiction, according to Cox. She pointed out how Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston have fully embraced their roles as leaders and teammates alongside Clark. Cox also highlighted how the backcourt pairing of Mitchell and Clark is already shaping up to be one of the deadliest combos in the league. So much for division.
Over there.
Yeah. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be.
You can see, and I've heard about how close this team is, Cox said, making it clear that Swoopes' accusations don't hold up. A lot of what's being said doesn't match the reality of what's happening in our organization, she added, pointing to the strong support Clark has received from her teammates and staff. Fever players have even taken to social media to
You could see, and I've heard about how close this unit was.
celebrate Clark's milestones and praise her relentless work ethic. If there's division in the locker room, it must be hiding really well. But let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about Swoopes versus Clark. It's about what happens when a new era starts to take shape. Cox sees Clark as part of a wave of talent that's redefining the game, and she's not interested in pitting the old guard against the new. This isn't about replacing
Caitlin Clark did, because so many eyeballs were on her, she is a huge multiplier effect of that.
I see a lot of players wanting to go, and this offseason, a lot of players are
anyone, Cox said. It's about building on what legends like Swoopes created. From this comment, it's clear that Amber Cox is playing chess while everyone else is stuck on checkers. Since becoming GM of the Indiana Fever, she's been laser-focused on building a team that doesn't just compete but dominates. Her vision is bold, her strategy is calculated, and her decisions, let's just say they don't.
Obviously, we want to take the next step. So I think as we're looking to free agency, we'll think about veterans coming in with that playoff experience.
Don't always sit well with fans and analysts who prefer the status quo. But Cox isn't here to play it safe. She's here to build a dynasty. Take the 2024 WNBA expansion draft, for example. Cox made waves when she left Tammy Fagley unprotected, shocking fans who couldn't believe she'd let go of a player averaging 6.4 points and 5.7 rebounds while fitting perfectly with Caitlin Clark on the court. The backlash was loud, but Cox had a plan. This was
in its entirety should have been featured. How do you respond to those comments, and do you think the award should have been given to the entire WNBA rather than Caitlin Clark individually?
I think Caitlin Clark deserved.
It wasn't about losing Fagley. It was about creating flexibility. She calmly explained the move, basically telling everyone to relax and watch the bigger picture unfold. And that plan? It's starting to look like a stroke of genius. By clearing up cap space and roster spots, Cox set the Fever up to make a serious push for top-tier free agents. The name everyone's talking about? Sata Sabali. After a season where she averaged 17.9 points and 8.4 rebounds, Sabali is the kind of player who can guard.
I think there gave other people their credit, while also giving the credit where it was most due. These things can be done at the same time. And, the joke I've always had is the reverence tax. I've never seen anything like with the WNBA where you have to pass an exam.
Every position and contribute on both ends of the court. In other words, she's the perfect fit for Cox's vision of a versatile, defensively strong team. Pair her with Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, and you've got a lineup that could send chills down the rest of the league's spine. Cox isn't just counting on Sabali. The Fever are also rumored to be eyeing Gabby Williams, another defensive powerhouse who brings depth and playmaking. The theme is clear. Cox isn't looking for flashy, one-dimensional players. She's building a team that can outlast, outplay, and outsmart any opponent. What makes all of this possible? Cox's financial.
Because people think it's about something else rather than that being the root of it and the basis of it. But Cox also talked about the expansion draft and the decision not to protect Teme Feg-Bentley. We'd heard similar comments from the Fever front office before.
Strategy. The Fever entered the 2024 offseason with $650,000 in cap space, one of the highest totals in the league. This wasn't by chance. By carefully managing contracts and planning for the future, Cox has given the Fever a level of flexibility most teams only dream of. We've positioned ourselves to be aggressive in free agency.
Last season, she played a really huge part in the Fever's success in terms of getting to that point where you all were able to make the playoffs, but also her ability to run the floor with Caitlin Clark and how their games complemented each other.
While ensuring we keep our core intact, she said in a press release, essentially throwing shade at every GM who doesn't know how to balance a budget. At the heart of it all is Caitlin Clark, the franchise's crown jewel and the WNBA's brightest star. Since being drafted in 2023, Clark has done nothing but exceed expectations, averaging 20 points, 8.4 assists, and 6 rebounds per game in her rookie season, numbers that seem straight out of a video game. But it's not just the stats. It's the way she plays, the way she carries herself, and the way she draws fans in.
Like, I don't take anything away from other players that brought more eyeballs. Angel, Cameron, right? Like, the identity and how much brand recognition these players now have in college absolutely help.
Clark isn't just a player. She's a walking, talking, three-point draining phenomenon. Her impact off the court is just as huge. Games featuring Clark have seen a 35% increase in viewership, and her endorsement deals with brands like Nike and Gatorade are bringing unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Amber Cox understands it. Caitlin's rise opens doors for every player in the league, showing that Clark's success is about more than just her. It's about